Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindie Chavez here. Today is Tuesday, August the 7th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your first Daily Dose of Happy. I'm getting confused about which Daily Dose it is, but it's the first Daily Dose of Happy for this Tuesday, and we hope that you're off to a good start and a better one with using your tongue than I am. But with that little glitch out of the way, Cindie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So you must have already had a happy dose then this morning, right?
I guess, yeah. I think I must be drunk on it or something because, just completely inebriated. But that's okay, It's a good kind of inebriation.
Well, happy Tuesday morning.
Happy Tuesday morning, yes. I hope everybody's off to a good start. At least here in the Northeast, the weather is very clear today, which is good because it's been hot and humid, and I'm hoping that with the clearness, it'll help, clear some of the humidity out as well, instead of having that haze that we often have. So, yeah.
It's been really, really humid here, too, as
really?
well. Yeah, we've had intermittent rain, and that on top of the weather in the 90s. It's like, it's really funny because lately I've been carrying around a pair of reading glasses because my prescription changed. And I don't need them very often, but if something is really tiny, and so I just have been having them in my hand. So I have like the reading glasses in my hand. And every time I walk outside, my glasses fog up. My phone fogs up. It's
right.
like a sauna out there.
Yeah.
I guess
crazy.
just going from the air conditioning where it's cool and dry out into that intense humidity.
Well, now you know what it's been like for those of us who have worn glasses since we were 6.
Right?
Because we've been experiencing that in our entire lives. Every time that we walk outside, if it's too hot or too cold or too humid or too dry or whatever, everything goes wrong. The glasses frost up or they're humid. They're covered with water or whatever. It's crazy.
Well, I have worn contact lenses since I was 9.
Wow.
And yeah,
My dad
I was a guinea pig for Stanford University at one point.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Because a child's vision usually is not what they call plano, which is 20/20, until a certain age. And mine was much, much earlier. So they decided to do some experiments on me. And my dad owned a contact lens manufacturing company. And so I was wearing contact lenses when I was really, really young, and I've worn them my whole life. So I never have that situation. I do remember, though, one time my sister was visiting, and she was in New Orleans, and she was very excited to take pictures with her very nice camera, and the camera had been sitting in the hotel room all night. And when she walked out in the morning, the lenses just fogged up.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's just a funny thing. I haven't had to deal with it. And all of a sudden. But I'm thankful for the humidity because I know people complain about it all the time. But for me, every time I go somewhere that's not humid, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
I can't drink enough water. I just feel parched. And so I'm all for the humidity, believe it or not. I guess I'm one of those rare people that actually likes it.
So if you don't walk outside and feel like you just walked into a wading pool, you feel like you're socially deprived or something.
It's just the extremes, I think, What's funny is that on days when it doesn't feel humid to me at all, because I'm used to it, if someone's visiting from out of town, sometimes they'll be like, oh, this humidity is killing me. I can't deal with it. And I'll be thinking to myself, oh, really? I don't even feel it today.
That's funny. Well, I have to say, I'm also grateful for my eyesight. I'm grateful that I can see it all. So, I may make my little complaints about glasses fogging up, but they're really tongue in cheek because I am so grateful I can see the world. I mean, I don't know if I've told you, I have macular degeneration. My left eye, I'm basically blind in, but I can see out of my right eye. And I'm so grateful for that. That's really good.
I saw a video last week of someone that was seeing color for the first time.
Yeah.
And, it was this man that came out. They videoed him. His family gave him these glasses that could correct color blindness, and he'd never seen color his whole life.
Wow.
And he didn't know what was in the package. So they're like, happy birthday, Daddy, open the box. And he was kind of, you could tell just from his body posture and the comments he was making that this is a guy that's just a big, kind of big, tough guy, probably a big softy too. But I mean,
right.
He was like joking around, and he goes, what is this? And they go, put them on. And he puts them on, and he can't speak.
Oh.
Like he's waving his hands around a little bit and stomping his feet a little bit like he's going to cry. And he just keeps shaking his head. And then they had balloons everywhere. And
how nice.
He just kept looking at the balloons, and then he turned around and there was a wreath on the door behind him or some kind of flowers or something. I mean, there was color everywhere, of course. And for us, and I was holding back tears watching this and thought, oh my goodness, the things sometimes we take for granted, right? Because most of us aren't colorblind, and we can see color. And it was fascinating and wonderful to see. What a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they do that. I mean, that's really interesting that they came up with a technology that enabled them to see color, but wow, what an experience that must be.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen more than one video of more than one person like seeing color for the first time. And it's always the same kind of, like, they're speechless.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which I'm sure I would be too.
Absolutely. How do you respond? It's like, please describe what red is. Okay. Well, you can't really describe what red is. You either know what it is or you don't. So now you're being presented with all these things that you can't describe. And it's stuff that feels beautiful and it's exciting and so forth, but there are no words. What do you do?
I thought about that when someone in the video, you hear them call out to him, like, what does it look like? And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like, no wonder he's speechless. I mean, wow. So
it's crazy. Yeah.
Just seeing it caused a lot of gratitude in me for being able to see colors my whole life.
It's an interesting thing about gratitude also, because there are a lot of videos of people who, for instance, had implants to enable them to hear for the first time. And
yes.
For some of them, it's a powerful, positive emotional experience. For others, it's a disorienting experience. There are some people who just really dislike this stream of data coming into their brain that they never had before, and it overwhelms them. And I think that's a really important concept to keep in mind when we talk about gratitude, when we talk about appreciation. Because I think a lot of the time when people aren't appreciative, it's because they're having trouble processing all the data. It's not something we normally think about, but how can you be appreciative of something that feels like it's overwhelming you?
Well, that's a good point. I was thinking about, look at all the money that people spend on like noise canceling headphones, and like sometimes we really want the peace and quiet. And if that's what you've had your entire life, and then suddenly it might really be annoying at first or overwhelming, I think was the word you used, which is probably more appropriate. But wow.
So it can go either way. And it shows how important appreciation is, for sure, because those who appreciate are also the ones who get the most out of it. And by the same token, it shows how it can be challenging to be appreciative. And it's important to keep that in mind. And I think that's one of the things I continue to look for as we continue to study Abraham and the teachings of Abraham, because they regularly make it a point to focus on the higher feeling stuff, which usually starts with some degree of appreciation of something. And that's not always easy to do. And I think this points to why it's not always easy to do, or at least one reason why it's not always easy to do. And so I guess I'm kind of looking for, where is Abraham going to come down on this particular slice of it, so to speak?
Well, what's interesting is what you just said about appreciation and Abraham, and this whole idea of us appreciating. We usually try to make there's always a focus of our appreciation most of the time, right? It's
sure.
Like, I appreciate fill in the blank. Caused me to think about an exercise that I've given people before to help with overwhelm, to help with low feelings, and that is to take a moment, take a breath, look around the room. And it's interesting because it has to do with color. or I use it as an example color. Find something that you appreciate. And I often say it can be a color.
Mm-hmm.
So I had one person say, when I told them that, they looked over and they saw their bedspread on their bed and that they'd always just loved the color so much. So I said, look, find something that you love, maybe just a color, something that you appreciate, look at it, and then attempt to appreciate it just about 15% more than you are.
That's very good.
And so I was thinking about that when you were talking about appreciation, and realized that even though we are picking something, we're not picking that thing, right? It's like that thing that's annoying, frustrated, seems like a problem. And we're like, how am I supposed to appreciate that? This is just pick anything and just point some appreciation at it.
Yeah, good point. Because then it's easier to do. And
it's a reminder that it's the vibration of appreciation. It can really be pointed at anything.
That's a curious thing about deliberate creation. Noticing that it doesn't have to be about a particular thing. It can be about anything where the feeling is the same. And we're not used to that. We're not used to thinking about the world that way. But nevertheless, that's the way to think about the world, because that's where we get the most traction, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that we're very, even those of us who think we don't have, powers of focus, we get very focused on certain things. And when it's a problem that we're focused on and not the solution, when it's the lack of that we're focused on and not the thing itself, then that can really throw a monkey wrench into our whole life.
Oh, yeah.
And so I come back to this all the time. It's like, I just have to reach for a better feeling thought. It doesn't have to necessarily be a thought about this thing. It's just a better feeling thought, period.
Right.
In the same way that the opposite way, that if I'm complaining, it doesn't have to be that I'm complaining about my physical ailment. It can be that I'm complaining about someone else that's a complainer.
Yeah.
But when I start complaining, it's going to show up in my life somehow. It might not even be the thing I'm complaining about.
I think the reason we look at, whether or not I was complaining about getting sick and that's why I got sick, or I was complaining about a bad boss and so I got a bad boss. We look at it that way often because we want to use the law of attraction to attract certain things. So of course we figure, well, that must mean that I have to not attract other certain things. That's where the correlation, I think, comes from. But you're right, that's not the way it ever really works. And that's why it becomes important to kind of shift our perspective on understanding how it works. You
know how you were talking about someone that couldn't hear and then got a cochlear implant and suddenly they can hear. And it's like, oh my goodness, this never ending stream of data that's coming in. It's kind of like that. We have so much data that we're taking in through our eyes, through our ears, through our other senses, and we try to make sense of it. And so we try to match up, things that seem obvious to us. Oh, I complained about, never getting a good boss. And then there it is again. I get a new boss and it's not a good boss. But sometimes that is what happens. But sometimes there's so much data. It's just a matching vibration.
Exactly. And that matching
vibration. We're not
vibration,
as good at identifying that.
That matching vibration is the thing we have to pay attention to. You're right. We aren't as good as we should be at identifying it. Hopefully, as you and I and the other co-hosts talk about these things, we get better at it. And as we practice it more in our lives, we get better at it.
Until we're better at it, we just take the easy route. It either feels better or it doesn't.
Yes, right. Yeah. Well, that's usually the best place to start when you don't know where to start, right? Does it feel better or does it feel worse?
Yeah, it's like when you go to the eye doctor and they put the little lens in front of your eye.
Better or worse?
Better? This or this?
This or this?
Better or worse? So
I'm not sure.
You have had lots of shows since I've been with you.
Yeah.
And how has it been? You've got 2 new co-hosts. We have
really
2 new people on the team.
Yeah, we do. We actually are probably going to have another change because it looks like David Bartkey wants to move off in other directions. So I'm actually in the process of trying to decide, do I keep the Sunday night show or do I give myself weekends off entirely? And I'm leaning both directions at the same time.
I was going to say this or this, better
or worse. Yes, right. Exactly. And you know what? I don't know the answer. It's like when they get the prescription just right and you can't tell the difference anymore.
I was going to say, now see, this sounds like with why the eye doctor is always so frustrated with me. This better or this? Neither one. This
Neither one.
This, they're the same. Yeah. It gets complicated sometimes when you get down there into that hyper-focus land, right?
Well, it's funny because I do enjoy doing the show, including doing it on Sunday night. And so that's a really strong draw for me. And by the same token, I really like the idea of having both days off completely, having my complete weekend off like other people do. And I don't know which way I want to go. So well, I think I'm just kind of staying open for the moment just to see if I get more input that, sways me one way or the other.
Right. It's Mercury retrograde right now, so if you're into that kind of thing.
I've never understood what that meant. I mean, I know it means something significant, but I've never been an astrologer. So when people say Mercury retrograde, the only thing I know is they don't like it. Beyond that, I have no clue.
Well, see, and I do like it. But I think that's because there's always talk about things breaking down during Mercury retrograde.
Right, yeah. You hear
that
a lot.
Communication breaks down, and they say don't sign contracts during that time, and don't buy a new computer, and don't. And I always look at it in a little different light, although I wouldn't disagree with all of that. But the RE in retrograde, I always use that as a guide. And so during Mercury retrograde, it's a good time to take another look, to review, to reassess, to, realign, to relax, hopefully not to reboot too many times, but to just take that time to kind of step back and make decisions, think about what's worked and what hasn't worked instead of the actual making of the decisions. It's the time to kind of let all those thoughts reverberate, so it's a good time for you to be stepping back and staying open and just...
Okay. I have to say that's a better explanation than most I've heard, because most of the time people talk about retrograde as being, tied, like you said, to something going on that they don't like. And I think to myself, well, if that's what it is, why do you continue to pay attention to it?
Right? No, I always use it as I pay attention because it helps with my own navigation of time and just rhythms, right? So it's like we all need... I always use the moon as an example because the moon wanes and waxes. And it's such a good metaphor for us. Like life has an ebb and flow to it. And sometimes we're hard charging and sometimes we need a break. So sometimes it's go, go, go. And sometimes we need to pull back. We have to do the research. That's another RE word before we can, write the report, right? It's like, so I always think that it's just a good time to give myself a break, tone down the hard chargingness a little bit, pull back, review what's working and what's not. And I love it because of that. It's like, oh, it's a natural built-in kind of break instead of, oh no, I'm worried that my computer is going to break down. It's like, I don't want to look at it that way. That's what happens to people, is that things do have a tendency to not connect so smoothly. But it's not as bad when you're not charging as hard.
I see your point. I think I'm probably still back in square one. Better or worse? Better or worse?
Well, you're going to figure it out. You're just going to know. One moment you will say, oh, I know what I'm going to do about Sunday night. And that'll be that. And it'll be perfect.
Yeah, it'll happen. I'm not sure when. Hopefully before Sunday. That would be helpful.
So speaking of all the podcasts and knowing when they happen and not missing any of them, even if they happen on a Sunday night, how can our new listeners subscribe so that they don't miss anything?
Yeah, that's a good point, because no matter what schedule we end up having, there will be a schedule. That much we can promise you, and it's going to be chock full of shows. We just don't always know from week to week what it's going to be necessarily, but you don't want to miss any of them, and fortunately, it's really easy to keep up with them if you have a smartphone or other kind of small device that you use to listen on. And the amazing thing, Cindie, is that's what everybody listens on. So it's actually pretty darn easy. But all you have to do is go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. Just browse to that page, and on the homepage, you will see instructions about how to subscribe to the podcast. It's pretty easy. It takes about a minute. And when you're done, all of the episodes, as they get published, automatically get sent to your iPhone or your Android or tablet or whatever you're using. And somebody pointed out to me something the other day. I can't remember who it was, but somebody pointed out some people may not really be clear these days on how to browse websites. They're so used to using smartphones, they don't even have that skill. And I thought, that's a really good point. Well, the good news is you don't have to browse the website. You can still get it through your application stores. If you're on an iPhone, that's the App Store. If you're on an Android phone, that's the Play Store. And if you just go to that place and do a search on LOA Today, you'll find us there too. So either way, you can install the app and basically not install the app, but install the podcast feed into your phone so that you're constantly getting all the episodes coming to your phone. And it's really great to do. I mean, all of the people who listen on a regular basis are subscribers, and they love it. They are listening to almost every single podcast that we put out every single month. That's how much they love it, and they're listening all the way through. So join the club, so to speak. Become a listener. You're not going to regret it. By the way, I got to tell you, Cindy, I had another contact from a listener on one of the Facebook groups. I had posted a link to one of our podcasts to answer a question, and somebody else chimed in, I listen to your podcast every day. I said, whoa, that's really great.
Oh, that is great. I love hearing that. Yay.
Yeah, it was really good. So thank you all of our regular listeners. We love every single one of you.
We do. We appreciate you so much. And like I've said before, I love hearing stories like that, and I love hearing people give us stories about the things that are happening in their life.
Oh, yeah.
And, so I'm always, when I think about the people that listen, even though I may not know your name or your face or have spoken to you before, I hope I will. Give us a call.
Mm-hmm.
But I do always hold our audience in a place of success, specifically manifesting success, law of attraction success, conscious creation success, because I want to hear the stories.
That's right.
Kind
Absolutely.
of like win-win, right? I'm thinking about you and holding you in that space of success when I think about our subscribers. So,
plus, what would be the point of doing a podcast on the law of attraction if your subscribers weren't actually getting anywhere using the law of attraction? I mean, that would be kind of self-defeating when you think about it, right?
Right. No, that's why we're here. So it's wonderful to get that feedback. It's really great.
Yep,
so we have been for the past months working our way through Esther and Jerry Hicks' book, Money and the Law of Attraction, Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness. It's a New York Times bestseller, The Teachings of Abraham. And this book has it's packed with information and not just about money.
Yep.
That subtext there, learning to attract wealth, health, and happiness, it really has covered almost every situation I can think of.
And I want to interrupt and point out the most important word on that cover is happiness.
Yeah.
Because you attract happiness, and actually all the rest of it comes along for the ride.
Right? I mean, so true.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea with better or worse.
Better or worse.
That thought feel better. So we've been talking, though, as we got we're past the middle of the book, and we got into the section that's talking about our career path. And this little section, I create my own joyous career. So
that's a nice idea. That's not one that many people are used to. So this is a good subtopic.
Yeah, I was really excited when we got to this section of the book and I realized what we were going to be talking about for that reason specifically, because there are many, many people who are unhappy with their career or wish they had a more joyous career. So Abraham says, we would like you to see your career is in quotations, as one of creating a joyful life experience. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I get it. So my career isn't coaching and podcasting and writing. My career is supposed to actually be creating a joyful life experience. Okay. It says you're not a creator of things or a regurgitator of what someone else has created or a gatherer of stuff. You are a creator, and the subject of your creation is your joyful life experience. That is your mission. That is your quest. That is why you are here.
That's why we do a podcast.
Right?
I mean, isn't that what motivates both of us and all the other co-hosts? Because this is part of our creating of our joyful life experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I wouldn't be doing it if it was a drag.
Oh, absolutely. If it was a drag, none of us would be doing it. And our listeners wouldn't be listening either.
Yeah. But how many people would describe their job that way?
Oh, yeah. Including
Yeah.
me.
So
That was me for years, years and years. Just not satisfied, not happy with my career and so forth. And all because I had actually been making my decisions about career based on the wrong thing, based on what I had been taught to do, based on what my society had taught me, what my parents and my teachers and administrators and all that had taught me to do. But I was doing it based on the wrong criteria. In other words, the criteria was, well, I've got to have money and I've got to have a future so I can support my family and all this other stuff. It's like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. What about liking what you're doing?
It's funny. That is probably most often the criteria is this. You should do this because there's good money in this,
right?
And you can make a nice life for yourself. And there's another criteria that I hear sometimes too that's not necessarily the best one, and it's you're really good at that. People tell us even at a young age, oh, and I'm probably guilty of this, right? Of saying to someone that's young that you notice a talent in, or that you recognize they're good at something. Oh, that's what you should do. You're good at that, right? But just because you're good at something doesn't mean you love it.
Tell me about it. That's exactly how I decide what to do with my career. I'm really good at computers. So my career was all about computers. Do I love computers? Not really, but I'm good at them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we're good at something, and it doesn't mean we want to do it like all day, every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so don't get me wrong. I like being good at computers. I like the fact that I can just kind of get into it and I can pick it up quickly. I don't need to have a lot of instruction compared to other people. I like that fact. I just don't want to immerse myself in them and live in them all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have some things that I'm really good at, but I don't want to do them, more than I need to.
Yeah, I mean, I could be good at cleaning the floor. That doesn't mean I want to be cleaning the floor all the time.
Millions of people just said yes. It's true. So I want to read that last sentence again, just because it's so powerful. It's in italics. It's underlined.
Right? Yeah, that pretty much tells you how important it is.
You are a creator, and the subject of your creation is your joyful life experience. That is your mission. That is your quest. That is why you are here.
Yes.
So it sounds so simple.
It's taken a while for me to get used to that. By a while, I mean from the point where I first became aware of the law of attraction to the point where I actually started trying to live by this. And I mean, to a certain extent, I'm still trying to learn to live by it, but especially in that early stages, that it was a little tough. But by the same token, it was really easy because I desperately wanted to have a career that I loved, because I had been living so long in the opposite, a career that I didn't love, a career that I put up with, a career that, just like, oh, well, okay, that's what I do. I had enough of that. I had so much of enough of that that there were no words to describe how much I'd had enough of that. And to be faced with the possibility of a career I loved, oh God, sign me up. Where do I sign up?
Well, what's interesting too is that the idea of creating a joyful life, like, no, my real job, my real career is just to create a joyful life. And when you said, that at first that thought was not real comfortable, I imagined people that would say, really? So that's all you care about? That's your mission and your quest, is just to have a good time, is just to be joyful and, and you don't care about anybody else. And, no, that's not the case at all. Because for instance, if I went to an extreme in that direction, it wouldn't feel good anymore. Right? If suddenly I was like, I don't care about anybody else, I just care about whether it feels good for me. And there was an opportunity to do something to help someone else, and I was like, I'm not going to pass that by. Well, that might not feel good to me. It's whatever feels good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And being of service and contributing to society, may feel better to you than not. And so you make that choice. That's all your joyful life. We're all responsible for deciding what feels best.
I actually explored this back in my earliest days as a young adult, and got a lot of pushback on it, and therefore got confused about it because it was long before I'd heard about the law of attraction. But I put forth the idea that, yes, we should be on this earth to live our most joyous life. And the response I got was very similar to what you just described about it being just a selfish activity. And I realized pretty quickly the flaw in their argument. The flaw in their argument was, if you're living a joyous life, you're doing it at somebody else's expense. If you're living a joyous life, it's not true. If you're living a joyous life, you are somehow acting without any regard for anybody else, which is it's an absolute pack of lies. Because
I think to most people that would diminish their joy to know that.
It would, but it's also simply not true. I mean, you look at people who are actually enjoying their lives for even small pieces of the time. The things that they're enjoying their lives about, with the exception of the people who just go out and drink all the time, perhaps, for the most part, it's good stuff. It's stuff that anybody could approve of. It's spending time with their families, or it's raising a family, or it's going to the ball game, or it's doing a myriad of different things that involve other people. So the concept that if we are living a joyful life, we are doing so to the exclusion of others doesn't even hold up in reality, and yet so many people buy into it.
When we're living a joyful life, we automatically bring joy to other people.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, it just happens because it's energy. So this is funny because I turned the page. When I finished reading, I was at the bottom of page 181 in the paperback, and I turned the page to go to the next section while you were speaking. Right. And it says, "Is it immoral to
get without giving?"
Yeah, I'm like, that's too. What we're talking about. Okay.
It's interesting how often that happens. But Jerry starts this one. He says, Abraham, would you say that it would be morally or ethically correct for people to never give back? In other words, if they just lived on inherited money or won money like the lottery, or lived off of welfare or donated money, would you say that would be appropriate for all of us?
Interesting question. Abraham says, your question still implies that there is a price to pay for the well-being that flows to you, and that some sort of action is required to justify the flowing of the well-being.
That should be in italics and underlined. That's actually more important than the part that comes later on. That's such a great sentence right there.
Let's read it again. Your question still implies that there's a price to pay for the well-being that flows to you, and that some sort of action is required to justify the flowing of the well-being.
Yeah.
That is just not the case.
It's not even close to being true. Of course, that's not the way well-being is supposed to work. Well-being is not supposed to have a price attached to it. And yet, that's what people do. We attach a price to it. We don't necessarily realize it, but that's what we do. We're constantly putting a price on. Oh, well, if you have too much well-being, you're not behaving properly toward others. Oh, give me a break.
Too much well-being.
Yeah.
It's neither necessary nor possible to justify the well-being that flows to you. But it is necessary to align with the well-being. You cannot focus upon lack of well-being and allow well-being into your experience.
It is necessary to align with well-being. The people who complain that there is a price to pay for well-being are the ones who are failing to align with well-being.
Alignment first.
Alignment first.
Many people focus upon unwanted things with no deliberate attention to the emotional guidance within them, and then they try to compensate for their lackful thinking with physical action. Now, see, I think that sentence could be in italics.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And because of the misalignment of energy, they do not get results from their action, so then they try harder by offering more action, but still things do not improve.
You think we'd learn after a while? The pattern keeps showing up. You'd say, maybe it's time to change the way I'm thinking about this.
Right? Well, there's that idea that became very popular that's attributed to Einstein, I think. But the idea that, that it's a form of insanity to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah, it shows up a lot in 12-step groups, I know. That's where I've heard it from.
the first time I ever heard it, I heard it in a different way. It's just basically, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Yeah, which is actually probably a better way of saying it.
Yeah, and so I think that that's so true, is that often this is a really, really important thing to remember, because when we're not aligned, we are not going to get the results we want.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all been in a place where we're doing a specific thing and not getting what we expected, not getting the results we want. So we just do it harder or more often.
Right.
And no amount of extra action is going to get the results if we're out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
If the results do come, they will come at a great price.
Either that or else they came because we accidentally got ourselves into alignment without noticing what we were doing. That has happened. I have noticed that there have been times in my life where, just not because I did anything consciously about it, circumstances kind of just aligned, and I had something really nice to relate to, so I felt better, and then all of a sudden stuff started to work. And I say, oh, well, all my hard work has paid off.
I actually, that's a good example. I think that happens a lot. And I think
it does.
I think we come to that conclusion a lot of the times, like, oh, okay, it worked. But it might have worked out so much easier, or it would have worked out so much easier if we would get into alignment first.
In fact, I would suggest that it might even work out better if you get into alignment first. Because that's a pattern that plays out a lot as well. I mean, the analogy that's usually used is water flowing through rocks. So the universe tries to deliver based on whatever our thoughts are through the path of least resistance. But the interesting thing is we're pretty good at putting up resistance. I mean, we're like beavers. We can put up dams if we really want to, and basically stem the flow entirely. So even in those situations where maybe there's a little bit of a breakthrough of the dam and some water gets through, imagine what would happen if there was no dam.
Well, that's it. That's the whole idea with alignment first.
Right.
That is, getting into alignment first is going to bring the best outcome.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So, like the air you breathe, abundance in all things is available to you. Your life will simply be as good as you allow it to be.
And as we're talking here, now I have a better understanding about why that phrase, because they phrased that a number of different ways in their books and so forth, why that phrase seemed hard for me at first. Because at first, if I heard the phrase, like the air you breathe, abundance in all things is available to you, your life will simply be as good as you allow it to be, I know that the feeling I experienced as I read that was a sinking feeling that said, but I do want it. I mean, it's not like I don't want it. I do want it. And now I understand that, and simultaneous to that, like the air you breathe, well, it certainly doesn't seem like it's as abundant to air to me. You know, air seems much more abundant than all the stuff that I really want. That stuff doesn't seem abundant at all. How can you possibly say that? But now that I have studied this stuff and talked about it with you guys and so forth and practiced it in my own life, I'm beginning to appreciate in a bigger and bigger way, it really is abundant. There's plenty out there. The only thing that's holding it back is me, and the only thing that I do really to hold it back is to not choose on a regular basis, on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-by-minute basis, better or worse.
Mm-hmm. Alignment.
Yeah.
If you believe that you must work hard for the abundance that comes to you, then it cannot come without hard work.
Yes.
And that's a really strong and prevalent belief.
It's true.
We hear it, many of us hear it our whole life. From the time we're small and we go to school and you have to work hard. Work hard so you can get good grades. I remember asking a client once who was kind of upset about their child's progress in school, the feeling that the child was lazy. And you know, I said, how about if you ask your child, what's the easiest way that you can get an A in this class? Knowing that the A was really important to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to see if it was the A that was important or if it was the effort that was important. They said they wanted a certain outcome, but I think the focus was really on not thinking that the other person was making enough effort.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you believe that you must work hard for the abundance that comes to you, then it cannot come without hard work.
And it
Let's
answers the
just
question.
all just decide right now in this moment to just let it be easy.
Yeah, right. Well, also
Right?
that sentence answers a question that we have early on that a lot of people raise as objections to this whole law of attraction concept, which is, well, if law of attraction is really how it works, then why is it that there are people who work so hard and they actually achieve their dreams? And the answer is in this
Because,
statement. They
yeah,
believe you must work hard for abundance to come to you, and so that becomes the only way that it comes to them. They
right.
basically just cut off all other possibilities.
And they manifested what they believed.
They did.
But in many cases, the harder you work, the worse you feel, and the worse you feel, the more you disallow the results that you wanted to receive from your hard work. It's no wonder so many people are discouraged and do not know which way to turn, for it seems that no matter what they do not thrive.
Mm.
And this next paragraph begins with words that are in italics: appreciation and love and alignment to that which is source is the ultimate giving back, so to speak. In your pain or struggle, you have nothing to give back. Many complain of unfairness or injustice when they see some people receiving greatly but offering seemingly little effort, while others who work very hard often show very little success. But the law of attraction is always consistently just. What you are living is always an exact replication of your vibrational pattern of thought. Nothing could be more fair than life as you are living it. For as you are thinking, you are vibrating. And as you are vibrating, you are attracting. And so you are always getting back the essence of what you are giving.
And before we continue, that last bit you read was all italic and underlined, but I really think the first part was really the important part, which they did have some italics in, by the way. But they said appreciation, love, and alignment to that which is source is the ultimate giving back. But in pain or struggle, you have nothing to give back. Which
Right.
is the diametric opposite of what most people who are talking about giving back come from. They usually come from a position of pain and struggle, and thus they have nothing really to give back. And they don't really notice that it's in their position of pain or struggle that they have the least to give.
It's so true. And it's that idea that many people feel guilt around having abundance because they look out and they see other people living in lack.
Right.
And it's like, well, your lack can't help them.
That's right. And yeah, that's what we try, isn't it? When
Yeah.
we're in the most pain, that's when we feel like, oh, it's time to become an activist. It's time to take an active position to help others and so forth. When what we're really doing, subconsciously perhaps, deep down in a place that we don't want to acknowledge, what we're really doing is we're asking for help.
Yeah. Of course, when things feel really uncomfortable and they lead to our becoming active in some way, that action feels better.
Yes.
So often we're moving in the right direction.
Yep. It's just not enough. Action by itself doesn't do it. You got to have the
No,
alignment
it's
as
not.
well.
You've got to have the alignment first.
Yep.
Yes.
So continuing the little conversation they've got going here, Jerry says if we take money out of the equation, so to speak, then if we're not doing for the sake of money, what should we be doing with our life? Boy, I can hear Abraham's answer already on this one, but go ahead.
So if we take money out of the equation, that's interesting.
Yeah. What should we be doing?
Abraham says what most people are doing with most of their lives is offering action to try to compensate for vibrational imbalance. In other words, they think so much of the things they do not want, and in doing so, they prevent what they do want from easily flowing into their experience. And then they try to compensate for the misalignment through action. If you would tend to your vibrational alignment first, by recognizing the value of your emotions and trying to focus upon things that feel good, you would benefit tremendously by that alignment, and wonderful things would flow to you with far less action. The majority of action that is offered today is offered amidst tremendous vibrational resistance. And that's the reason why so many people have come to believe that life is a struggle. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read that again because that's so true, right? The majority of action that's offered today is offered amidst tremendous vibrational resistance. I think a lot of times when we feel resistance, that's when we start pushing harder instead of getting aligned, right? That's the reason why so many people have come to believe that life is a struggle. It's also the reason why many, like you, believe that success and freedom are at odds with one another, when in reality, they're actually synonymous. And this is all in italics. It's not necessary to take money out of the equation. It is necessary that you make your quest for joy be the most dominant part of your equation. When you do that, abundance in all manner will flow to you.
The one thought that I kind of wish they had tied together more, but it's in here if you look for it. The question that Jerry asked is, what should we be doing? And the answer was in that bit that you just quoted, in which they basically, this is me translating it, they basically said, should is a way of putting up resistance. When you say, what should I be doing, or what should he be doing, or what should she be doing, you're actually putting up resistance. And that's not what we normally think about with the word should. But nevertheless, that's what should is. Should is a resistant word.
Oh, yeah. It's catabolic language. We do not, there are no shoulds.
And for those who are not as literate as you are, define catabolic.
Well, things are energy as well, either catabolic or anabolic. Anabolic builds up and catabolic tears down. In chemistry, we need them both. In our body chemistry, we have them both. In energy, when we are using catabolic language, this is resistance at its finest. And this is that hard work that we hear about a lot of times, which I was saying earlier, sometimes the hard work does pay off that struggle, but it always comes at a cost. And it's usually a cost in our body, in our health, in our relationships. And anabolic is, the more aligned we are, the more anabolic our energy is.
So if we translate, So if we translate catabolic to tearing down, then what we're saying here is using the word should is a form of tearing somebody down.
We tear ourselves down with it.
Yeah.
We produce, I should say, so much guilt within ourselves by feeling like we should do things a certain way. And, most often when we feel guilty, it's just because whatever we're wanting to do isn't in alignment with our values.
And interestingly enough, the people who use the word should most often, particularly if they're using it regarding somebody else, what they're really saying is, I want you to behave the way that I want you to believe, because that will make me feel happy. That's what they mean by should.
I never like the word should. And I often say, as soon as someone asks me that question, what should I do? There are no shoulds. But especially if it's thinking that someone else, that we are telling someone else they should do a certain thing. No shoulds. No shoulds. Oh my goodness. I just noticed what the next subtitle is. Welcome to Planet Earth.
There we go.
I say this often. I didn't know it was an Abraham thing. I say it in a snarky way. It's probably not how Abraham's going to say it.
No, they really don't, but that's okay. One
Abraham
leads to the other.
says, if we were talking to you on your first day of physical experience, we could be of great advantage to you, because we would say, welcome to Planet Earth. There is nothing that you cannot be or do or have. And your work here, your lifetime career, is to seek joy. You live in a universe of absolute freedom. You are so free, excuse me, you are so free that every thought you think will attract unto you. Let me grab a drink of water.
Yeah, well, I'll do some reading. You get something to drink there. As you think thoughts that feel good to you, you will be in harmony with who you really are. And so, utilize your profound freedom. Seek joy first, and all of the growth that you could ever imagine will come joyously and abundantly unto you. And that's all in italics, by the way. But
when I was listening to you, it reminded me that we sort of do that with babies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're good with babies in that sense, right?
We try to get them to be as joyful as they naturally are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But this is not the first day of your life experience. It isn't? Oh, wow.
No.
In most cases, you are reading this long after you have been convinced that you are not free and that you are unworthy and that you must prove through your action that you are worthy of receiving. Oh, that's what they mean. They're talking about us now as grown-ups. Many of you are currently involved in careers or work that you do not find pleasing, but you feel that you cannot just walk away because the financial repercussions would cause even greater discomfort than what you are already experiencing. Boy, is that true. Many others who do not currently have work that is producing income feel the discomfort of having no means of support or promise of future security. But no matter where you are currently standing, if you will make a decision to look at the positive aspects of where you are right now, you will stop the offering of resistance, which is the only thing holding you apart from what you desire. You do not have to go back and undo anything or beat up on yourself for what you have not yet accomplished. If you could, in essence, regard this moment as the beginning of your life experience, doing your best to resist the bad feeling, resistant thoughts of unworthiness or resentment that often surround the subject of money, your financial picture would begin to change right now. You only have to say, here I am on the first day of the rest of my physical life experience. And it is my dominant intent from this moment forward to look for reasons to feel good. I want to feel good. Nothing is more important to me than I feel good. I'm going to read that last bit again, just as kind of a little reinforcement for me. Here I am on the first day of the rest of my physical life experience. And it is my dominant intent from this moment forward to look for reasons to feel good. I want to feel good. Nothing is more important to me than that I feel good.
I love that.
Mm.
And they mentioned in the paragraph before, but no matter where you are currently standing, if you will make a decision to look at the positive aspects of where you are right now,
yes,
you will stop the offering of resistance, which is the only thing holding you apart from what you desire. And I thought about the beginning of the book. That was one of the things in the very beginning of the book. It was teaching us about positive aspects.
Right.
And how to identify the positive aspects. And I love that they said this. If you would just stop and identify the positive aspects of where you are right now, then you'll drop the resistance.
Interesting point, too. If you've got a lot of resistance built up, and I have to be honest, I have a lot built up. I mean, it's a lot less than it used to be, but I know there's still a lot there. I can feel it. I can sense it. If you have a lot of resistance built up, it may not eliminate all of the resistance, but you can count on this for sure. It will reduce it.
Right. It will feel better.
It will feel better. Better
or worse. Better or worse.
Yeah.
Right. It will feel better. And I started thinking about this. We talk about momentum. And so things that, like you said, I hate to admit it, but I have a great deal of resistance sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Because you use the words built up, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's built up. It's like momentum. And I started thinking, does resistance have momentum? Because to me, resistance feels like it's stuck, like it's stopped, like it's pushing. So maybe it has some other force, but...
Well, it's an interesting point because in physics, resistance is kind of the opposite of momentum.
Right.
But I think you've raised a valid point here. I really do think resistance does have its own kind of reverse negative momentum in that the more often, the more consistently we reverse, the more that we consistently stem the flow of the good feeling source energy, the more that there is a momentum in that direction because that's what we're used to. That's what we are habitually, habituated to. That's what our belief is. Our belief is in the lack. It's in the bad feeling. It's in all that stuff. And we built that belief up over time. I think that's the great lesson of belief. I love the idea that Abraham teaches that a belief is a thought that we think of over and over again. And I think the really great lesson in there is that it's not just about the positive thoughts. We also build up negative beliefs, and those beliefs become stronger over time. And that's where the real momentum, so to speak, comes from. It comes from the fact we keep building these negative beliefs up over and over and over and over again until they become formidable.
Then we gather more and more evidence to support that belief.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And pretty soon it's really, but I just love the thought that just taking a moment and stopping and focusing on the positive aspects of where I'm at is enough to drop the resistance.
It is.
And then dropping that resistance allows the things I want to flow to me.
And ultimately, does it really matter whether resistance has momentum or not? Not really. All that really matters is, are we going to let go of it by persistently choosing between better or worse and choosing better each time?
That's the simple question.
It really is.
Does it feel better or not?
Yep.
It either feels better or it doesn't.
Because if we keep following, this feels better, this feels better, this feels better, we get the result we're looking for. That's the message.
So I think I really, really love this. This specifically, the part that you read, that's the message that we didn't have Abraham there telling us this on the first day of our journey on earth, but we can just decide that today's the first day of the rest of our physical life experience.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And then we can just choose to make this our dominant intent. Look for reasons to feel good. I want to feel good. Nothing is more important. Now, see, I think a lot of times it's easy when we want to feel good to flip that switch where we're talking about that we don't feel good. Right? I want to feel good and I don't feel good. And our focus keeps going on to the parts that we're not accomplishing.
Yeah, which means it's not so easy after all.
Well, this is why I think the positive aspects are so important.
Mm.
Like you were talking about a rampage of appreciation.
Yep.
And to me, they're really similar. In that if we will just take a moment to find the positive aspects, be deliberate about it.
Yeah, ultimately, I guess that's what being a deliberate creator is. A deliberate creator is someone who's always looking for a reason to feel good.
Deliberately,
yes. Because the more that we do that,
it's funny. The word happiness comes from the root word hap. Right? Like happenstance, like it just happened. It just, I happed upon this good thing. And that's not really the way we want to bring happiness or to bring a good feeling. Because that's not deliberate at all. That's just, it just happened.
That's luck, yeah.
And so we really want to be able to hone our focus, sharpen our focus on the better feeling aspects, on the good aspects. And that way we can consciously create the good feelings in our life instead of just hoping that they show up.
It's very important because when we do it consciously, then it becomes more habitual. It becomes a regular thing over time. It may not be instantaneous. I mean, if we've got a lot of bad habit going the other direction, it may take a while. But we can count on it. Just like Abraham tells us, we can count on it just by focusing on what we want the new belief to be, this new good habitual belief. It becomes real for us and it grows and it becomes more and more powerful in our lives. So constantly looking for reasons to feel good actually does pay off in the long run because we become better and better at it.
And it actually, I mean, there is physical, restructuring that happens in our brain. We are changing our brain when we get really deliberate about this and start making a point to focus on the positive aspects. And then the more our brain changes, for that's the default, the norm, the habit. Yep. It gets easier.
It does. It gets a lot easier. The only thing that doesn't get easier is every time that we come near the end of the show and we want to keep going. That's the only part that's not easy. The good news is now that you're doing a Wednesday afternoon podcast, that means that today, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be able to continue this discussion and carry it on. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope you are as well.
I am. I'll be back tomorrow morning.
All right, good. And we hope that you'll continue to join us, too. Do become a subscriber, by the way, if you haven't done that. Make sure you do it right now. In the meantime, we hope that you will join us next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.